this is something that when I was introduced to it in college was very exciting to actually realize the value and the importance of someone having a foresight in leadership. And so I spent a bit of time there, and I'll show you why I tied foresight with agility. Okay. So as I said, today is session 5. Okay, sorry. Yeah, and we'll get to talk. Let me just do a refresh on our calendar. We finished the first one and we did the second session, 3, 4. Today we are doing session 5, which is leaders foresight and agility. I combine these two. Every session that I take has actually 2 related topics, and I just scratch this stuff. I mean, it's deep, very elaborate. Any of these would possibly take like 3 months to do. I'm organizing some material for those who want to go deeper on a special arrangement, but we hope we can be able to bring on board Haji to talk to us about tackling corruption, actually leadership and corruption. The essence of bringing these leaders to engage us and to talk to us is part of our objective, where we bridge the older people and the young people, but also to learn, because as I'll emphasize later, a true leader is a learner. And those of you who have read Maxwell's book and possibly finished, you realize that Maxwell is very particular with the attitude of learning. So we'll keep this going, and I am happy that you guys found time so that we don't interrupt this schedule. So I mentioned that we'll be learning about what you call the leader sites. In another name, we'll see they are called tri-sites. There are 3 sites. They are called sites. The first one is hide site. And basically it's just from what you are seeing here, looking at the back, it's reflecting. I mean, when you're driving, those of you who drive, you can see the back from the vehicle's mirror. And so in life, the leader needs to be able to look at the back. And there's a reason we'll possibly look at it. It's very important for you to learn to look at the back, the hid or the hide side of your life. And then there is the insight. You see the sight here and another sight here. The insight is a current one, the current situation that you see you are now. And again, we have a past, we have a now, but we also have a tomorrow, which I'm calling the foresight. So I'll spend much of my time on the foresight. This is my interest. Many people don't have a problem with the hindsight. They don't have a problem with the insight, but many of us have a problem with the foresight. If you live in these first 2 worlds and you do not know how to move to the third one, then there's a serious problem, particularly today, and you'll see that so that I don't go ahead of myself. Okay, so these are the 3 sites: the hindsight, the insight, and the foresight. And we need to be able to learn how to live on these 3 sites at any given time and know when to leave or to embrace which kind of site, okay? Now, so as I said, I'll focus more. This is basically the same. I just wanted to say what happens at the hide site. It's mainly this is the ability at this level, you have the ability to reflect and learn from the past. So this is really, in the past, and it's important to reflect on the past. If you don't have the habit of reflecting on the past and being able to digest on both the positive and the negative, then you are vulnerable, because you can carry on habits that are not healthy, or you can drop healthy habits that are necessary in the insight. So, and then of course the insight is when you have an insight, you have the ability to interpret and respond while balancing the hid side and the foresight. And the essence is when you balance the past and what you don't even know, what you are able to project or anticipate, then you can be able to create a vision that doesn't keep you at the back and at the same time doesn't take you too far. It keeps you going. But at this step, there are times when you need to move to this level. And this is one thing many people do not live into. We tend to settle here, especially if things are working well at this level. So we need to be able to know, even when things are working well here, we constantly must engage this sphere of our life. And basically, it's mainly anticipating. You're not predicting. There's a difference between prediction and anticipate. Many times, if we predict, we could be wrong, but we are allowed to anticipate. And anticipation here, many times, is necessary. And it tends to be informed by trends that are either happened here or that are happening here. For example, at the moment, if I may give an example of this one, the COVID-19 has changed a lot of things, particularly the way we are doing business in all spheres. One of them that's heavily affected the education sector. And somebody needs to be able to say, it's now, what's likely to be happening. I mean, I was involved in a group that's thinking about what you call the foresight or scenario thinking, where it says things are happening the way they are. Some we can clearly see, others we can't, but they need to be able to tell us. We need to be able to anticipate and then prepare for the future. So this is basically what I'll spend a bit of time trying to discuss. Many people don't have a problem with these two. This happened. Possibly the only challenge we have is many of us don't want to reflect, particularly when the past is negative. But I just want to say that there is no experience that's bad, that's wrong, that's useless. Every experience that we go through, particularly those of you who believe and are Christian, every experience that we go through is very important because scripture tells us that all work for good of those who love the Lord and are called according to his purposes. So it's important for us not to drop anything and see how we can carry along and bring it where we are or use it to anticipate tomorrow. And these are there for the trio, the insights and the insights and the foresights. They kind of are called, that's why they are called the trio sites. Now, so as I said, I'll focus henceforth more on the foresight. Okay, so let's learn a few things about foresight. Now, foresight it has been described as today's secret ingredient of success. And I want you to notice this word secret. And basically it's because many people don't even engage this level of their thinking or life. We just live, particularly I said when things are doing very well, we tend to settle and actually just try to expand and get deeper on this very same thing. And we do not anticipate that things could change variously. So it's a secret of success, particularly in the 21st century. Now, foresight is the ability to anticipate or foretell. I mean, you speak in advance before it happens, foretell the future developments, and not just foretell, but prepare for them. So it's the ability to anticipate and prepare. And that's very important. If you don't learn this skill, particularly those of you in business or leading organizations, there is a lot of danger because anything could just happen. You know, particularly things that have happened in situations where countries, for example, experienced tsunami or stuff like that, and they were not prepared. Today, you know, thousands of children in Africa are out of school, while in most other continents, you know, people just jumped into technology and moved on. But Africa is not prepared, including my own country, and I'm sure other countries that are represented in this group. This is something that should speak to us, because we just think in terms of organizations, but even us. I don't know whether you have asked yourself questions that possibly will come to that. One of the ways of preparing or engaging or developing your foresight is to ask questions. And I don't know whether you have asked yourselves, particularly those of you who are employed, what will happen or what would happen today if your employer told you that you have 1 month to go home? you need to learn to ask questions. I started asking myself questions some years back. I left job twice when I was early in my 40s, and actually before 50, both. Now I'm 50. Before I left, I deliberately quit job, deliberately. I mean, I made that choice. And it's because I asked questions, and those questions helped me to begin to foresight or foretell or anticipate something. Okay. So it is about anticipation or foretelling about the future. And then when you begin to anticipate, you prepare. You don't know everything, but you begin to do scenario mapping and prepare. Now, this foresight entails making decisions and entails making decisions, judge to be good, but in the present moment, not just in the present moment, but also in the future. If the decisions are just good in the present, but they're not good in the future, then you are not foresighting or foretelling. You are just imagining your stuff, or you're just building the current one. So the kind of decisions that you make must be both working in the present and in the future. So how do we foresight? How do we develop our foresight? One of the ways is doing what you call futuring. Now, futuring is an active exploration of the future possibilities. I know this is an interesting area, particularly for Christians, because we don't believe we know everything, and sometimes this can look like it's foretelling stuff that's not outside our realm. But we have level, some certain degree of imagination as people that God allows us to do, and we can explore. For example, let me just come back to COVID-19. Somebody needs to ask themselves, how will education sector look like in the next maybe 2 to 3 years? And actually, possibly, I need to stop there and hear what somebody thinks. What do you guys think? I need somebody to tell them, what do you think? Or governments, how will politics look like in the next, or health sector? Just give me an imagination, one area that you think, what do you think things are going to look like after the impact of COVID-19 in the next 3 to 5 years? Just give me, I'm happy to hear somebody dream. Just imagine, pan your thinking, let your thoughts just pan out. What do you think is going to look like in the next 5 years? Anybody? Let's do some foresight here. And how do you do it? Let me just give you some tips. Look at the current situation, what's happening, or the things that have changed. And it's like a road. Tell me, what do you think is going to happen? Yeah, go.
In the next few years, we'll see more of homeschooling and a crowded school.
I can't. Can you first tell us, when you begin to speak, tell us your name, and then tell us again. I can't hear you. It looks like my net or yours has a challenge. Let's see, go again. Somebody was speaking.
Hello.
Yeah, go.
Yes, in the next few years, and
am I the one missing you, or the rest can hear you? I can't hear you well.
We can't hear.
Yeah, we can't hear. You can't hear you. I think there's a net. I really wish I would hear. Maybe you can type, but somebody else.
Hello, my name is Denise.
Yes.
In the next few years, I see like the world is going to turn more into technology.
Okay.
Like many people are going to lose their jobs. And since this social distance has really taught us not to be in contact with people. So the world is going to try as much to focus on technology to do its work.
Okay, so there will be increased use of technology.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah, and therefore, if that's the case, Denise, now, assuming you are talking to yourself now, you
Yeah.
are currently doing something. Tell me, what are you doing? Let's use you as a case study just to see how, futuring happens. So what do you do at the moment?
At the moment, I do like makeup,
Okay.
but there are already 3D printers of makeup. So I would maybe have to purchase the 3D makeup printers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People don't
And that's
touch their faces.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's one way you could be talking to yourself and talking about your business, saying, look, I think technology is taking shape. But I'll come to you how you can get deep so that you're not just guess. You are more pretty accurate. Because remember I said if the decision has to be good, it must be good now, and it must be able to be useful in the future. So that's one of the things that we must know. So it's actually active. I want you to notice this one, exploration. It's not just prediction. You don't there's a difference between anticipate and predict. So we can predict, but there's danger when we predict. We say we think it will happen. We need to be informed by either a lot of information that we have explored, we have researched and found out, we just read stuff, because one of the ways you find of growing our capability to foresight is to be able to be informed. So it is active, and I want you to notice this word, active exploration. In other words, there is intentionality in this case of the future. And I'll give you an example of one time that I was helping an organization to be able to explore its environment, depending on the work that it was doing. So it's important for you to explore. Then futuring, which helps us to foretell or foresee, is identifying and accessing a wide variety, going ahead, a wide variety of possible possibilities. And there's this, when you identify and assess, and there are wide varieties of possibilities, and making astute judgments. In other words, sharp, clear, sound judgments about what will work out best over time. And this comes with a lot of experience, by the way. You possibly need to do it with people several times, but I'll give you a few practical tips that I use to help a company begin to think through this. Now, so good foresight depends on good futuring. This process of exploring, active exploration, assessing. If we master this, then it will be possible for us to become people who can be able to develop that part of our sight, the third one, the foresight, okay? Now, somebody said that foresight enables us to anticipate many of the risks and opportunities. And I want you to notice this. We don't just anticipate risk. Many people tend to focus on the risk. Instead of focusing on both. You need to be able to focus on both risks and opportunities, because in this, like we will shortly see, in this very complex environment that we are living in, there are both risks and opportunities that could confront us in the future. And we do this while at the same time giving this, when we are doing foresight, it gives us time, because it's a deliberate process. It's not a by the way. We shouldn't allow future to just land on us or ourselves get caught up. We need to be able to engage actively and stop fearing. Sometimes we fear the unknown, and then we say, I'm not sure what will happen. Let me just be comfortable where I am. And we don't engage. I have heard people say, I don't want to think about my lack of employment, or I don't want to think about life without employment. Yes, it will come. It's like saying, I don't want to think about age. It will come. It's a matter of time. If God gives you life, it will come. So you better think about it. Let me just pause here and say, so the one when we were young, newly married with my husband, somebody was advising us about the importance of investment. And they said, think of this old you seated under a tree, just moving around there with, a walking stick and very little, almost, dying kind of energy. They said, think of yourself that far and ask yourself, who will feed that old Anne? I thought, yeah, and that's the same. Think about those things that you don't want to think. Think about a situation. Allow your brain to engage the fearful things, the risky ones. Think about a situation where, for example, you don't have money to pay rent, and prepare for that. Because if you begin to think about that, then you say, no, I don't want to be caught up. You'll be annoyed enough to say, I don't want to be caught up in that situation. I want to prepare for it. So you allow your mind, of course, with data, I will show you with information, but when we anticipate risks and opportunities, we begin to prepare. And I don't just want to think about the negatives. Even this, something like this, which I began, I thought, what about if I begin to add life to young people? I don't know where this will take me, but if I'm not there tomorrow, these 40-something guys listening to me will remember. I mean, it is an opportunity that I have to add value to somebody. So think of those many opportunities that could confront us in the future. And some are now, some are not come, have not come. And we must therefore think ahead if we are to cope with the hurricane of change confronting us in every aspect of life. And these changes are in the workplace, they're at home, they're in the education sector, economy, health, whatever. They are all over, even in our faith, And this guy, Cornish, is written a very good, he's one of the most respected writers. He's called Edward Cornish. He's one of the most respected writers in about foresight. And he says we need to be able to think ahead. Stop, don't fear. Many of us fear to think. We freeze when we think of some things we don't want to think. And I think we need to train our brains to think. God gave us power to think, and not just think out of fear, but think informed, in an informed way. Okay, so that's important. That's about foresight. We need to keep thinking and move forward. So why foresight? Why should it be, why this sight? Why should we not worry a lot about the hindsight and the insight, but this sight? It's because more than ever, we are living in an increasingly complex environment. It's called VUCA. And this word VUCA means this environment we are living in today is very volatile. It's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, it's a big one. And I think the challenge of foresight is how can we get it right when we are living in this kind of environment, where we have a volatile environment. It can change overnight. I mean, I've kept just thinking about this COVID thing and wondering, I mean, how could the world just go quiet? We are locked, almost all of us. The world is, I mean, for the first few months, there was a time almost every part of the world, everybody was not functional. Not, of course, maximizing their potential, but very volatile. We couldn't predict this. Nobody foresaw this one, It's also uncertain. We don't even know what's there tomorrow. It's complex. It's you can tell from this part of, I mean, you move from this, you go to another one. It's something you can't tell. The economy, the art and everything. You put things together. Sometimes they just don't work. The environment you are living with is very complex, and you don't know everything. Some things aren't clear. So for this reason, we can't run away. We must engage this environment as leaders. If you people as young leaders, you intend to get anywhere and lead people, you must train yourself to engage this kind of environment. It's a VUCA environment. Okay. The second reason is why we should be interested in foresight. That's being able to anticipate and prepare for a world we don't know. There's increase in the types, magnitude, and speed of change. It's more or less re-emphasizing this point. In this environment, change is lightning. One, there are many types of changes now, and they're increasing. The magnitude, some are massive, like what you're already dealing with at the moment, and then the speed. And some of them are, issues related to globalization, population, technology. Somebody has just mentioned about technology, climate change, pandemic. Let's look at this one, interesting. Just before COVID, there were huge, highly funded, conferences on climate change. I've been keen to watch the international space. The other day, I don't know whether you saw that image. I don't know who said it in the social media, but one of the world cities, I can't tell which that was, Momo, I don't know what that was, a city where you couldn't see it because of, pollution on one side. And in less than 6 months, it was so clear because kind of the polluters are indoors and a lot of activities have gone quiet. So I'm just keen to see immediately after COVID, what is UN and the rest going now? What approach they take on climate change? The other day I was watching in one of the very close to, I think, Qatar or one of the oceans around Northern Africa, and they were showing these huge sea animals, whales, which they're saying for 50 years they had never been seen in that location. There were many. They were saying there are around 600. They were coming towards the shore. They had never been seen. They were deep in the sea. And so see what's happening with just 6 to 9, possibly now, I'm just imagining by the time we get to September, a lot of things will have changed. I saw a city in Italy, which was full of birds. I mean, they came from all over. They had never been seen. Somebody was saying for over 30 years, they had never seen that species of birds, but they were full in the city. I mean, on the streets, they were looking like flowers. So one, the species are out, but also the population. So I don't know, I'm keen to see, that's what I'm saying. The types, the magnitude, the space of change. The climate change is different. The pandemics are taking a different shape. You don't know what next. Not sure how politics look like, other different types of social change. I saw the other day, I was reading of this pastor of a church in US. He pastors minority, and one of the minority groups are the gender, the lesbians. It's a church that appreciates that perspective. And I thought, he went to one of the respected Bible colleges in the US and was straight, and he's a pastor. That was unheard of when I was young. You couldn't, leave alone be called a pastor. You couldn't be appreciated in the mainline church if you leave alone ascribing to such behavior, but just expressing your opinion on the same. So the world is changing. There are many types of social changes that are coming, and the question is, how are you preparing? Are you anticipating them? How are you preparing to be able to still uphold your values amidst this kind of changes? And then we need to keep talking about foresight, because the most important skill right now, they say, in the 21st century, to effectively help us manage, harness, and leverage the constant changes. And I've already spent a lot of time talking about that. So we need to be able to develop our capability to anticipate what we don't even know and what we are not able to see. Stuff that possibly is beyond our capability, yet we are not excused for not being able to engage that other part of the world. How therefore do you develop and nurture your foresight capability or capacity? What I will share here is not exhaustive, but just give you some tips and possibly try it out as you get into the journey, because this is a skill. If you want to get to the apex as a leader, whether at home level or place of work or wherever, church, wherever you lead, this is a skill you will not ignore. And you will not go far without your ability to develop your foresight capability. So I'll discuss 5 things. One is becoming what you call future smart, and I'll come back to what future smart is. The top 500, company leaders or guys who are today respected, they have this capability, we call it becoming future smart. And then we need to learn to question our assumptions and biases. This is a place that many of us get stuck, especially in the insight. You remember the middle one, or the hindsight. We fear, because of the fear of the unknown, we develop very strong biases and assumptions that become like our strongholds, if I may say, that we are not able to move forward. And then we need to learn to scan the outside, inside. We start scanning from the outside, the inside. And I'll share some experience of a company that I worked with when I was a student and was able to realize how weak they were and what's happening today. It's something called an issue management. And then we need to be able to be agile. This is now being called a mega competency today. Agility in different things. Agility in relationships. Agility in structure. Those of you who are in organizational structure. Agility in culture. The other day we were discussing about subcultures. We call them different types of cultures that we have in the urban setting and the rural, but this is very critical in our thinking, in a leader, and possibly one of the days we'll talk about the leader, how the leader, maybe the next lesson, how the leader culture influences organizations. And then become a perpetual learner. And those of you who have read the book that we are reading and possibly moved on, this is non-negotiable. A leader is a learner. If you don't become a learner, I can tell you, you don't go far. So I'll discuss this, and possibly that will conclude our day. But let me just stop there, because I've been talking. If somebody has a comment or you have a question, I would want to just pause and allow somebody to say something. Any question, any comment? Any need for clarification? If none, it's an interesting group. Very quiet. When you keep quiet, there are two things they say. Either you don't understand or you understand it. Which is which? Let me hear. Are you guys following what I'm saying?
Understand.
You understand, all right? Let me go. Okay, let me continue. That's encouraging. Okay, so let's talk about becoming future smart. Okay. So a future smart person, somebody says future smart is about getting ready for a disruptive, accelerating future. This is a word here. Getting ready. Getting ready. Because this future is coming faster than you think. And it's often faster than I think too. This future is coming faster than you think. You know, in my church where I go, we have different groups. You know, lady. One of them is the ladies, not necessarily married ladies, but just ladies. And so occasionally we share some communication just to encourage each other during COVID, particularly now that we don't know who is. I mean, we don't meet face to face. So the other day I see that one of us sharing the frustration of not knowing the basics in technology. Now the kids, she's a mother, and this lady actually was a banker at some point, but she never pursued much knowledge in technology. And so she was saying she's not able to cope with supporting her children who are learning online. The future, nobody told us COVID will strike one day and schools will be closed. So we must get ready in many ways, because this future, and it's disruptive, it's coming. When you get ready for a disruptive future that you don't even know, you just equip yourself. Somebody said one time when I was young, the thing that helped me when quite early, around 2006, is when I began to study stuff about leadership. And I think I was driven there because it was a church-oriented program, but I just loved leadership, so I wanted to know. And I think one of the most striking thing there was, and our training was based on Maxwell material, was how Maxwell put it to say, I said one statement that struck me. He said, many times we miss opportunities, not because the opportunities are not there, but because we are not prepared. And I said, opportunities come, but opportunities don't wait. You know, think of, you know, these advert screens where, you know, adverts roll through, or even a TV. You know, when you're watching a TV, at the bottom, you see these words that are rolling at the bottom, and I don't know what you call that. But basically, opportunities are like that. They roll through past your eyes. The thing we don't know is we don't know when they will come back. Because when they roll through, they are gone. And somebody said, many times we lose to embrace those opportunities because we are not prepared. That ability of preparing for a disruptive, accelerating future that's coming pretty fast is what we call future smart. And I want to ask you, as I go through this, are you future smart? Are you preparing as a young person for many things, not just work environment? And we'll see how sometimes we can prepare better, but one of the ways is just to purpose to become future smart. Be ready. Another statement that describes what future smart is, it says it's about intelligently and predictively preparing for tomorrow. I want you to see these two words. It's not just a laissez-faire kind of, you know, lifestyle. There's brain work here, and there is purpose involved in it. Your brain comes to play here. There's intelligently and predictively. In other words, there's an aspect of brain and risk taking, and you are preparing for actually for a tomorrow you don't know. And basically, every individual organization must prepare today to meet the extreme challenges of the future. I can't overemphasize VUCA environment. It's just increasingly getting complex. So to be future smart is, again, not these two words, intelligently and predictively preparing for a tomorrow. We don't know whether this tomorrow is real tomorrow, is 2 years to come, 10 years to come, 20, we don't know, but prepare. For example, the other day we talked about emotional intelligence. Let me just use that as a way of preparing for tomorrow. One of the days I learned over the years is that offenses will come. And somebody told me they happen between the womb and the tomb. So if you're emotional intelligence is so bad that anything little just blows you up, then you can't survive this world, because we don't know if you move from. In fact, somebody told me one time when I was young in my profession, they said, don't change jobs when you are not well in your heart, because when you do so, you carry yourself a bad environment within yourself. The next stop or station you will be, you just bring out that poison, and people can't stand you. So they say, learn to deal with your internal environment, for example. That's one way of preparing for a future, dealing with yourself, developing your inner person, because we don't know how tomorrow will look like. I was privileged in my working career to work with people from different cultures. I remember one time I had just been hired as a country director for Build Africa, and my boss sat in UK, so they occasionally came, and I and my Ugandan counterpart, of course, we were the only ones in Africa. The program wasn't big in Africa, and so they would occasionally come here. Of course, they would enjoy coming and enjoying the warm weather and going for safari. And so I bought a pointer, the training gadget, the one you use for pointing. And so we are seated in a training hall. We are new, and the finance. So we were making our presentations. So comes the finance guy, who was a Briton. So he stood to make a presentation. And out of a pure heart, I thought, instead of him using his hands to keep pointing, let me give him the pointer. He turned it down. I was very hurt. Now, that's something little, because I felt snubbed, humiliated. And actually, they started laughing. There were 5 of them. They started laughing, those gentlemen. There were 4 men and 1 lady. They started laughing. So I'm wondering, what mistake did I do? I just want to give an example that this preparation for tomorrow, it starts with yourself first. Your system must be whole. If your brain is going to come into play, and you take risks to engage in a known environment, you cannot ignore the internal self. So that's really where you begin. You begin with the inside, okay? Now, Future Smart is also about taking responsibility to change yourself. Actually, this is really what I have spent time talking about. To me, this has been a long story, and I am not about to stop. I told somebody the other day, the first time I heard about emotional intelligence, I wanted to just leave. I remember one time, and this time I'm a director in charge of an entire division. I'm with World Vision, and so we are 6. One of the most balanced leadership team. We were 3 ladies and 3 men, and the 3 gentlemen included the country director. So we used to be given 360 degree feedback, where they would have your juniors appraise you, your peer now, the fellow directors, and then your boss, and then they would get somebody in the regional office or a service provider who has worked with you to assess you. Then they would get a professional and put that information literally raw, no editing, nothing, no tampering with it, just cluster as for those groups. And then you are given a copy, and the people, your colleagues, are given a copy. So your colleague will sit, your peers now, the colleague directors, would sit in a semicircle, and then you sit in front if it's your time. Okay? And then they would take you, they would give you that feedback again, and you are ready. The first time I packed my bag at 3 p.m. and went home. I couldn't take it. I I thought, I didn't imagine that was possible. So that was, I think, 2000, possibly 9. So, and I took responsibility of getting into a journey of working on myself. And I told colleagues the other day, if I would assess myself now, assuming that was a benchmark, that was 0 when I started working on myself, 2006, because this is when I'm getting into leadership training. To today, those are 14 years. If I was to give myself a percentage of growth, I would say I'm 45% growth. I can tell you the truth. I think I was a mess. I don't even know how people used to work with me. I had moods. You talk of moods. I would go to the washroom to cry. And I'm a director. I mean, I disagree with somebody. The anger would be unbearable. I would walk. I remember one time walking into a shower. I mean, our bathroom, and cried there. Then I came back for a meeting. Are you taking responsibility of working on yourself? You can't be future smart, guys, if you don't take responsibility of working on yourself first. And not just working on yourself, but changing yourself. And then you learn new strategies of doing business. Now, I'm privileged to be married to a very diplomatic husband, and our son equally very diplomatic. Sometimes when I tell Momo to write an email to you, it's completely different from how I put mine. So I learn how they do stuff. Their diplomacy is different from mine. Mine is very Blair. Developing alliances. Are there people? And I'm coming back to yourself. I'm throwing away organizations and big organizations. Let's talk about yourself. It's you now. Learning new strategies of doing business, either engaging people, solving conflict. I still mess up many times on this one. I mean, I'm brutally honest. My language is too bare, so I have to learn. Developing alliances with people who can help you. Discovering innovations, of course, things that can help you, yourself, but also now moving higher to organizations that you lead. And of course, inventing new solutions to prepare, plan, adopt, so that you can now face that future successfully. So this is it. This is where it begins. It begins with yourself. And I realized one of the best ways to start this journey is close to the people that you live with. Those of us who are married or have children, I used to struggle to tell my children I'm sorry. Oh, that was a big one. I mean, because my parents, I never saw my parents tell me we are sorry. So they did tell me that adults can tell children they are sorry. It's that simple. But I learned the best way to teach my children is to actually do what I want them to do. The behavior that I want them to adopt is where I begin. The same in your office. I gave you a story another time when I was a country director on an organization, and I'm glad one of my former colleagues is here. And I was shocked to find people were arriving in the office at 10. I was shocked because in my previous employment, people would be in the office around 6:30, 7, latest 8, particularly those who came by the bus. But those who had their private vehicles, they would be in the office very early. There was such a discipline. So I come to an office and people are getting to the office at 9, 10. I was shocked. But I remember this principle that you cannot give what you don't have. So I began to just get to the office early. I didn't tell people to come to the office early. And I saw things change. So what is this change? Some of you are in middle management. Some of you are leading teams. Some of you are, at least you are doing your own business. Don't be cheated because you're the business owner that you can come to the office at 10 and you start yelling at your own people to come to the office early. Change yourself now, because I told you the things that we begin to change now will begin to help us to prepare us to be future smart. I think I've taken a lot of time on that one, but it's self. This is the thing. I just want to emphasize on this. If I don't get nothing today in this discussion, if you want to be future smart, start with changing yourself. The other way that you can prepare to have a foresight or to become a foresight. So the first one on foresight is becoming future smart, working on yourself, preparing for the future. The second one is you need to question your assumptions. And this one, I'll just ask you questions. What is your reaction when a new innovation or a new idea or a new concept is introduced in a setting where you are? Sorry. What is your thinking? What's your reaction? Do you oppose it? Do you embrace it? I leave that to you. I want to ask you another question. Do you tend to trust your traditional way of doing things and you can't welcome a new one? Is this the only, there are guys who are very difficult to change their traditional way of doing things, particularly in Maya's bridge system, the ones you call the SS, the sensing people are very factual and they are right many times, but they tend to pride in their accuracy, and they don't embrace things they don't know. Have you ever been with people who say, so what is the proof? Where did you get it from? Where are your facts? There may not be facts. Future sometimes doesn't have, foretelling sometimes doesn't have all the facts. There's a level of risk. Are there certain people, gender, you have already written off and say, women can't lead, or men from this particular community can't make good husbands, or they can't make good managers? Are there people you have written off? Begin to challenge your assumptions and biases, because these things are real roadblocks to risking or thinking about the future. It's very difficult if you are very strongly persuaded on certain assumptions and ways of doing business to risk, because foresight is about, it has a high degree of risking. Actually, people who are good futurists, if I may say, from the word foresight, are not to be mavericks, they are risk takers. What has held you back for too long from engaging the unknown future? Is it the tendency to justify? Particularly those of us, when I think of becoming future smart, is it self-defense? Is this a too much? No, have you ever seen people who know everything? There is nothing they don't know, so they don't need to learn. This is a serious setback if this is where you belong. Is it a never learning attitude? There are many things, and I just want to leave you with questions. Questions your assumptions and biases. Begin to ask, actually you need to ask them, what are your assumptions? I like to be optimistic. I know I've just written a book on corruption. We are just waiting for one small thing and to go to print. And my continent, your continent, our continent look dark, doesn't look good. And anytime I've raised a discussion on corruption, it almost looks like there's no hope. But I choose to believe that things can change. I'm particularly monitoring the scenario changes in our country. I've just seen today in the media, some guys have been told to pay some 792 million Kenya shillings. The other day, some guys were told to pay more. I mean, there is hope that some of these heavy penalties possibly may deter the small things that could possibly have continued to fire the tendency to keep our countries corrupt in Africa. Do you have hope, or have you lost hope? Are you the type that keeps killing or destroying hope? A leader must give hope amid this hopelessness. So, what are your assumptions and biases? Okay. Challenge them. The third thing that makes you, that can help you develop your foresight capabilities, other than becoming future smart and learning to question your assumptions and ideas, is scanning from the outside inside or inwards. And I want to explain this. Okay, so you first look at the external environment. Where are the internal pillars first? what are your strengths? The other day I was talking to somebody, a young person, and I said, you need to be able to appreciate what you are good at, okay? But also where your distractors are. What is your distractor? Is it attitude? Is it poor time management, inability to manage time? Is it your inability to forgive, for example? Or is it fear? You maybe have a good heart, but you just fear. Is it self-distrust? Some people don't believe they are able to move things forward. They are so self-distrusting that even when they have such a powerful capabilities and competencies, they keep burying them under the seat or whatever. So you try to tell them, you are good at this. They say, no, I'm not the one who is good. And I used to have that habit of telling people, I'm not good at, no, I can't do this. Occasionally I catch myself trying to say, yeah, then I tell myself, no. If they saw it, let me build it. What are your distractors? Look outside of your institution or industry, those of you who are in managing organizations or your businesses or areas of specialization, to discover the idea or innovation that might disrupt or create an opportunity. Now, I want to give a small story here, but I kept the name because, I don't want to get into trouble with I know this is being recorded. I don't want to get into trouble where I end up mentioning companies. But this company is a logistic and freight company. It's been in Kenya for over 30. In fact, not in Kenya. It does this for over for other countries within East Africa, even Central Africa, and it's been on for that year. So when I was doing a course we called issue management. Issue management is where you study the external environment in relation to things that are likely to impact a particular sector or business. So this particular company, I picked one of the things because it deals with a lot of data. It's a lot of data that it keeps. I knew one of the things possibly it interacts with was technology. And so I thought I wanted to find out if they had a system, how their technology system was, and particularly if they were aware of the insecurities that surrounded the cyber insecurity issues or cyber security. So I realized actually they relied on the nation newspapers. That's a bad way of getting information because what is in the nation is already known by yesterday. So I did what you call an initial report. I did a lot of research and wrote them a profile, a quick one. And I refer to them to the 2019 it's global risk report. If you just type online, actually you get it. The 2019 global risk report. And we realized that from that report, it's projected that I think they are listed the 20 most serious risks that impacted any kind of company. Now, cybersecurity was number 3 and 4 in the sense that they had separated the cybersecurity access for data and information. So can you imagine such a company? They did not bother to have that kind of thing. And that was just, I'm trying to explain how you need to study you start from the outside inward. In other words, study the external environment, find out things that affect you, and come back to the business or come back to yourself and say, how does it affect me? Now, these guys, when I visited them, they had bought 200 new transport trucks, brand new, for transporting stuff within the country and in East Africa, in East and Central Africa. I don't know why they are not foreseeing what is it called, this stuff that the railway, they had seen the railway being built. They were not looking at what was going to happen. They didn't foresee what is it called, the SGR. SGR stands for Standard Railway, Standard Gauge Railway. They are not seeing the train coming in. So a lot of stuff now, after buying 200 trucks, can you imagine? New trucks, 200, brand new. The SGR was on board now. And this small company here called Vito Mob was on Vito Mob. It's now a big company. These guys have given them headache. I have no idea what this company is doing now. But recently, my friend who used to work there just left and told me it's crumbling. It used to be one of the biggest companies in Eastern Central Africa. But this is a danger of not being able to study the external environment, especially along your industry. Things are changing fast. In fact, companies that are thriving, they have what they call issue manager. Somebody whose business is to constantly study. They don't just read the simple stories that you find anywhere. They are constantly researching and reading and bringing on top to the fore very, very critical information to the senior management so that companies can make decisions. That's how some of these companies survive. If you listen to Joe when he was talking to us the other day, you could hear how Safaricom works. There's somebody who constantly is studying the environment and bringing that information back into the system. Families, sometimes we think of a huge company, but there is going to be dynamics in the family, the way families are working, the way families are living. Okay? Are you interested in your industry? What are you doing about it? To develop your foresight, you need that. You need to research and document this related one. And I just want to show you this different. When I was in those early 90s, public universities were the top thing. I remember visiting Makerere University and Nairobi University, and actually we're doing a course with UK, and so Leeds University. So the lecturer who was teaching us was from Makerere University, and so we went to Kampala. So those were the top public university. We are top notch. What's happening today? The other day, my University of Nairobi, began to advertise. Whoever would hear University of Nairobi, the only university in Kenya that starts with the university, and they are very proud of the University of Nairobi. So my University of Nairobi was advertising just as the way Daystar is advertising what's happening. Somebody settled with their success. I visited Nation Media the other day and we're having a conversation with the CEO. And he told us some years back, they used to print 300,000 newspapers per day. He said by 8 o'clock in the morning, they would have nothing. They would start releasing them at 3 a.m. with these tiny vans and some of them on the road to Mombasa. Now, he told us they are struggling to sell 90,000 today. This is the issue. And we were open, with the team that I was with, we were discussing about culture, organizational culture. And I told him, I don't bother. I don't even ever know when I ever bought newspaper last. Because every information I need is on my phone. I just need to click and have it. Did they see print being at the risk of or electronic coming up? This is foresight. Companies that are not able to do foresight are in trouble. And it is everywhere, even the church. Just watch, you guys. Just watch now. What is going to happen to the churches after this COVID? You guys from Uganda, are you having your church online? Anybody? Talk to me.
Yeah, we have on TVs and online.
What are pastors saying? Tell us about the pastor. What are they complaining about?
They're actually striking. That they can't
striking.
Breathe. Yeah.
They can't breathe like George's case, eh? So watch. We have just been given the opportunity to open, but under very strict condition. We are not able. Very few churches can meet those requirements in Kenya. But Even if we open churches today and the government is saying nothing, just watch, guys. I challenge you to take that one as your case study. Watch what is going to happen. There is a group that will never go back to meet physically, or they'll be going to church once a year or twice. Online church is going to be an in thing now. Something has happened. And if people are not prepared to grow the online church now, it's going to be very difficult to reach a certain cadre of society. Study the environment. It's something you need to start doing now, you young people. You have a lot of time with yourself. And everybody has at the same time. Let me not say you have a lot of time. We all have 24 hours. It's just how we use it. And we can't carry forward if we don't use it. I mean, God doesn't allow us to accumulate and carry forward to tomorrow. If you don't use it well, you waste it. You would start with another 24. But this is it. Are you keen to see what's happening outside everywhere? So you must be a widely read person. Not just these stories, tiny things. Get informed. Get informed and see how things are turning. Monitor trends and begin to prepare. The other one, 4, is increased agility. And I will talk about 3 types of agilities here. Okay? The first one is what you call the cultural agility. It's being now called the mega competence. We talked about cultural intelligence. Now this is cultural agility. Cultural agility has something to do with your ability to excel in different cultures. It's not how to cope with the cultures, but the ability to be able to perform very well in different cultures, okay? That's what you call cultural agility, okay? And so if you are not culturally agile, then it becomes very hard for you to survive in different contexts. Somebody said this, somebody said, why should we have cultural agility? This was Financial Times. They said, for today's global organizations, cultural agility is a new competitive advantage. It's a thing that will sell you. Now, this Paula Caliguri is a respected writer, has written a book called Cultural Agility. In fact, it was one of my textbooks, and said, culturally agile professionals succeed in contexts where the successful outcomes of the jobs, roles, positions, all tasks depend on dealing with unfamiliar sets of cultural norms or multiple sets of them. This is the issue, that agile professionals will succeed in all things. And this is the word, agile professional. Culturally agile, not just agile, culturally agile. In other words, they are able to be flexible, to be able to fit in. They are culturally intelligent. They are accommodative. They can maximize on different cultures. So one of the things that can help you to improve your foresight is your ability to be agile. And I said, one of those agility, the strong one, is culture. The other type of agility is in organizational structure. Okay? And this is a reason. Let me just show you. This is a traditional one. The danger with this traditional one, this is how things were. Look at where boss sits. Look at where the technical team or whatever they sit. Now tell me this, and there are many other layers. Okay? The reason why Toyota lost its position, I think it was 2016 or something, after being top for many years, is because of its organizational structure. Okay? It lost its position, I think, I can't remember the competitive organization, but one of the other automobile that took over. It's because the structure was different. Now, look at this structure. Agility here means, look at this person can reach the center without much struggle. The circles tells you possibly the seniorities. Now, this is even now the more acceptable one. You have different teams actually seated in different environments and working. If you are an effective leader, you avoid this kind of structure. You appreciate it, but you either work with this or sit here where you can be able to reach different teams with their capabilities and get them going. The advantage with this is the first thing that kills organization is lack of flow of information or the distortion of the same. Because if the information comes, let's say if there's another layer here, and then it has to come this way, and then come here, and then come here, by the time it gets here, I can tell you it's distorted, or time. It's an issue of lapse. But think of a boss who is seated here. This person can just talk to the boss directly. And I'm not saying possibly this person shouldn't go through this, but there are certain things this particular person, assuming this A reports to B, there are times when the urgency and the weight of the matter doesn't need this route. It simply needs a straight one. So this is what you call agility in organizational structure. And organizations that tend to use this, there are different names. Mine was not to teach you about organizational structure because that's a different course altogether or stuff. Mine is agility. If you want to be useful and think you want to develop your foresight, then agility is a factor. And one of the areas is in organization. So we have seen cultural agility, we've seen organizational agility, and there's another agility, just before I do away with agility, relationships. We need to look at this. There are 5 vital relationships that every leader needs. Of course, yourself, you need a team, you need the customer or boss. In fact, they say the customer is the boss. You need other stakeholders. These are other people doing a similar things that you are doing, or competitive stuff, but vital to you. And you need support teams. Now, look at this. If all these people are in a, layered type of organization where you have one layer staircase type of the first I showed you, it becomes very difficult. But look, these are relationships. When you build relationships, you need to be able to have agility so that if you are seated at the center, you can reach the team easily, you can reach other people easily without having to struggle. So for you to improve your foresight, you need to be able to improve or be somebody who is agile. In other words, you are not restricted by structures. You are not restricted by a particular way of doing things. Okay, that's important, that you can quickly be flexible, you can change. If the best way of thinking of agility is to think of somebody who is doing sports. I mean, especially somebody who is doing yoga or stuff. You've seen how they twist their bodies and change shapes with little, almost effortlessly. That's the best way for me to explain agility. It is that ability of being able to change shapes and parts of the body without having to struggle and even think much. That's agility. We need agility if foresight is going to work for us. Okay? Sometimes it's interesting to listen to children and you discover they have a foresight. And then finally, one of the other ways of improving your capability for foresight is to become a perpetual learner. There's no shortcut here. I don't know how I can say this more. It's something I'll repeat every other session we are together. Are you a super, not just a perpetual one, are you a super perpetual learner? You can never quench my desire for information. Possibly I have too much, but it's very important that you cultivate your appetite and your attitude to learn. I have said this to you before, and let me say it again. The day you stop learning, something happens to the entire system about you. You start dying. And you don't die physically. You die in many ways because human beings continue to grow because of information that they take in. And someone told me the worst death is not physical, but is what dies in you when you are still walking. I really don't want to get there. Let me say a few things. How do you become a perpetual learner? You need to self-evaluate. Be self-aware about your learning habits. Do you learn? Do you learn? I leave that choice to you. If you're not a good learner, begin to cultivate. Anything can be learned. It's a matter of interest, commitment, and time. So you need to be self-aware of your capability or ability to learn. Are you able to take in information? Are you teachable? Okay. Resource appropriately. Back to my story, my anchor and my disappointments. And I said, I grew up in a setting where I didn't have a very close relationship with my own mother. And so I didn't realize how it affected me until I began to leave home, like working, marriage. That's where I realized. So one of the things that I realized was a big handle or a big roadblock, kind of a struggling point for me was anger or even unforgiveness, especially. So I began to look for books that spoke about forgiveness, communication, whatever it is. So resource for yourself appropriate. Don't just buy anything. Resource. And this resource could be people, could be books. I find people who struggle to buy a book, and yet they need knowledge, they need information that is in that book. How many of you here have a Kindle account and your books in there? Some books are as little as, actually some are free, others are $2, $4, $20. I mean, I never feel guilty when I'm shopping for my brain and my heart. Resource. If you want to be a perpetual, resource appropriately. Prioritize your time. Those of you who have read and are reading the Maxwell small book, he talks about prioritizing. And he talks about wisdom vested in the art of prioritizing. He says there's wisdom there. Time is not, I said earlier that if you do not spend your time well, you can't carry it forward. That thing gripped me one time in life when I realized that if I spent 6 hours wisely and possibly sleep 5 or 6 others, 12, assuming you sleep to even 9, you give yourself extravagantly 8. Let's say you spent 8 hours wisely and then you sleep another 8. That's 16. You still have another 6 hours there. What did you do with that time? Can you account for your 24 hours? Sometimes I'll lose sleep and I just want to give those of you who don't sleep for many hours. When I was studying, doing my doctoral program, I religiously got used to waking up at 2 a.m., 2:30, 2 a.m. Now, for 3.5 years, the body got conditioned. I'm not able to go back easily, and I think it will possibly take time. So the question is, when I wake up, sleep disappears at 3 because my body is used. What do I do with that time? You need to be able to say, what do you do with that time? My brain is generally active from 3 a.m. In fact, from 3 a.m., that's what I call peak period. 3 to 12 noon, I'm good. So how do I make use of that time? What's your peak period? Peak period is a time when your brain is best. You are on top of things. Your brain sounds best. What do you do with that time? You cannot do everything. And the first, if you read the second, I want to refer you, some of you who have not read that book, please look at chapter 2. Maxwell, in his book about developing the leader within yourself, he explains why we struggle with this. Okay? Then work out your attitude. Some of us are not able to, we have convinced ourselves we can't learn. Or we are defensive. Or we are too much no. Or we can't take correction. What's your attitude like? Cultivate a learning attitude. It's a journey. Initially, you find it difficult, but allow other people to speak into your life. And you need to learn to evaluate yourself, but also have other people evaluate you, give you feedback. It's good to know, am I making progress or am I not making progress? Don't just learn and read and stuff. Occasionally, have people you're accountable to so that you can be able to go back to them and tell them, am I making progress? What do you think? And where you're struggling, you ask for help. And finally, if you are learning, we need to see these two things. Evidence that you are learning rightly is there are results. And the results are, there's a change in something, either the way you manage time or your attitude or the way you resource or whatever it is. There's something you choose to invest in, and we need to see change. The change might be gradual, but you know, this change is actually not witnessed by people only. Even you know. I know where I've made good change. Now I'm a better negotiator. I don't always use hard language. I can negotiate. And I see this growth, because even other people say, you've really changed. If somebody says, so and so, you've really changed, take it well, and particularly if the change is positive. Okay? So I've given you 5 different ways of cultivating your foresight capability. 1, endeavor to be future smart. 2, you need to question yourself. Okay? Number 3, I need somebody to tell me, what's the third one? I know whether I've been talking to guys listening.
The third one is scan from the outside in.
Great. And what's number 4?
Increased agility.
Speak out loud.
Increased agility.
Increase agility. And of course, number 5, be a perpetual learner. Okay? So now you see the tie between a foresight, a leader who has a foresight, somebody who plans, you know, and engages, anticipates tomorrow, and plans for this VUCA, you know, environment, and agility, because you can't be a foresight leader and you're not agile. Okay? We're in good time, and I am done, and I stop at that calendar so that we remind ourselves what we are supposed to be doing. But just before we get to the calendar, let me just stop there and invite a comment or question or something. Okay. There's somebody else said nations and people will save more for any other future eventuality. This is what the current crisis has taught most of us. Okay, that was good thinking for countries, perhaps extra investment in the health. I think that was somebody who was talking about what COVID is likely to, how it's likely to impact us. Now, hi, Anne, I would appreciate if you could share this recording, very helpful. Yes, we should be able, as long as you have attended, we'll link you up so that you can watch. Any comment, any question? Any question on this? Yeah. If you have, I'll keep quiet and wait.
So, Dr. Anne, I'd probably thank you so much for that presentation. It was interesting. You gave the example of the freight company versus V2Mob, because I actually use V2Mob quite a bit, and it's very interesting how they have integrated technology in their systems, and they have made, shipping and logistics very, very easy. So
yeah,
I just wanted to say that, it's a company I've used, and it's quite impressive how they have been able to leverage on technology.
Yeah, it's actually very many young people, and they do it very well. They ship almost everywhere, globally. I mean, internationally, and bring stuff to Africa. And and they are doing well. I mean, they have taken over the shipping business. The convenience, and I think if you were to analyze them, what has made them, kind of given them a cutting edge compared to these big companies? One, a few things for me. One, the technology, of course, the convenience of me being able to order comfortably at my house, but also them being able to get stuff, simple things that don't even make sense, that they are very important. I don't, in the huge shipping company, you need to possibly to hire a huge container or whatever. They are able to get your stuff and mine and another and bring it. So to them, it's not how little it will come. But also three, the convenience of bringing it to my house. And because of blending these different parcels, the cost is very affordable. I mean, so I think there are a number of things, but they are efficient. I mean, you can be able to, you can predict how long it will take to get your parcel, and then they keep you updated. So I thank you for that comment. Any other observation or a question or comment?
Hi, Anne.
Yes, go.
This is Terry.
Yes, Terry.
I am asking this question because I know in this forum, we have people who work in different countries. And of course, yourself, you have experience in working in different countries and leading programs in international levels. As a person who is new in a new culture, I've been in this culture for 3 years. And one thing I find I'm struggling with every day is, how do I thrive in my career? Because sometimes it's very real. It's possible to get intimidated in the career sector, especially when they review your papers and they tell you maybe you will have to go back to school to measure up to their standard of education, if I may say that. And you look at your past papers and it's super discouraging. Like, how do you go about that? How have people who are working in different countries thriving? Like, I know there's one among us who works in the US. I would just want to hear from them. How did they make it? Because for me, I think I'm finding it a bit really hard.
So before I answer, let me ask Mocha, how do you thrive in US?
Yeah, let me hear from Mocha, I think.
Mocha, how do you thrive in US? Or you don't thrive, you are surviving. Let's see, and I'll give you a few tips, having worked in different contexts.
Okay.
That's an interesting question, Pastor. I think you're better placed than I am with the experience that you have. But needless to say, I think for me, what I came to understand, because I've been in the US before with my previous employer. I worked on a secondment in New York. So this is another employer that I'm working for. But what I've learned for me is people rarely appreciate your title. They appreciate what you know. And I think that has really made me, very intense and very deliberate in being very good at what I am, so that I become an authority in that field. So of course that requires a lot of learning, and I'm in a technical role, so you have to learn a lot about the standards and all that. So that for me I think that's how it has worked for me. Being good at what you are, so that you become an authority in that field, then that's what people respect you anytime you're giving an opinion about something. Yeah,
Thank you, Morgan. That's true. But let me say something here, Terry. One of the things you're struggling with is culture difference. Now, the West has what you call low culture, low power, Africa has high power distance culture. I will explain what that means. the West, countries like US, Canada, Australia, and such, they have what we call low power distance culture. Now, let me explain what the two means. The high power distance culture is where the subjects apportion authority to a leader, even if the leader is wrong. And that's common in both Africa and the Middle East. A leader has a lot of power, and even if they are on the wrong, our culture makes us continue to. It's like we place them up on the pedestal. We place them up there, and there's a distance, just the way that word says, high power distance culture. There's the person with the power is not seated with us, is on a distant level. And so in these cultures of high power distance culture, titles matter. That's why when and people come from cultures here, Ugandans will tell you, and in Africa, Uganda and Swaziland, South Africa, where the kings are, they will tell you the power of a king. It's a powerful person. They don't need to go to school. They just need to have been born in that kingdom. Their power. And we respect, we bow, we worship them. Their power. That's a high power distance culture. So therefore, titles matter. The whatever is ascribed to the person in power is very important. Now, the West, the West is a low distance, culture, power culture, low power distance culture. In other words, the boss and the subjects are at the same level. So now that's where what Mocha has said is very important. They don't care about your title. They care what you bring on the table. That's number one. So that in itself, Terry, is something you will struggle with. It's true, but it's not the big one. The context you are in does not respect the education that we have in Africa. When I learned that, I decided deliberately to study with the first world countries, deliberately, because I knew if I just send my certificates, because one of my master is done with UK, the other one is done with US. And I will give you an example. When I was applying for my doctorate, the US, Rinchard University wanted my certificates, and they said, because these are foreign certificates, we need that translated or converted into their GPS system. And of course, my first degree was in those of you who come from Kenya with Egerton University, and then one of the other, my master's was the University of Nairobi, the most important university here. They didn't care. Now listen, I sent those certificates, and then of course my other master's was with the Leeds, UK. So when I sent my transcripts or certificates to a body called Western Education System, this is service. This is a system that's recognized globally, and it translates certificates from one context to another, so that it's like qualification. It's like the body that qualifies certificates globally. Can I surprise you? They told me they do not need to translate my certificate from UK, but they needed to translate my certificate from Egerton and University of Nairobi into a GPS system. The other one did not have GPA, but because it was from another first world, they didn't need to bother with it. So Terry, let's talk about agility. If there is an opportunity, you can go to school. Don't fight, don't defend. They don't respect education from our context. And listen, guys, when we arrived in Rinchard University, during our orientation, the first on-campus class, this is what the head of department told us. And I think she must have been talking to some Africans in there. She said, listen, if you are used of getting A's in your previous, education, forget about A's here. All you need to do, make sure your GPA is 3 and above. And I said, wait, so they think we cannot get A's? And for me, if you give me a challenge, I will go for it. And I am forever grateful to God. I did my best, I did 18 units. Out of 18 units, only one I had A minus. The rest was straight S. So my GPA ended up being 3.98. African, yes. The issue was not to prove them something, but I knew I'm capable. So sometimes agility and ability to be able to fit in a particular context requires that you comply. My advice would be, and I know you are a mother and you have children, if there's a way you can look for, if you can look for a way to get into one of their colleges and do a course, they will ignore all the rest and look after that one. All Africans who go to the West, many times they have to train them. Let me be positive on one side and tell you the difference between their education and ours. African education is very theoretical. They don't train us many times on translating the theory to a practical setting. When I was doing my doctorate, I did so many practical things. My professors would send me to go and either train in an organization or do a culture. For example, I would do a culture assessment stuff. So other than just those examination stuff, they gave me an opportunity to apply. Now, I can tell you, I did top notch. I mean, my masters, when they translated both my degrees from Kenya, I had extremely good GPAs. 3.1 was 3.8, so it was still good. But when I compare what I learned at this level and with the Western universities and what I learned with my universities in Africa, those guys are very practical oriented. And possibly, I just want to be positive. Possibly that's why they want us to be retrained when we are doing things in their context. I don't know what Mocha you would say you are working there, but they do a lot of practical training. They expose you to a lot of application, kind of applying knowledge. To them, knowledge is not important if it's in the book. There's a way they train you. So my wisdom would be coming to terms with the fact that you are dealing with, you are in a different culture and the two cultures are different. Choose to look at it positively and say, yes, since you are not there for 2 days or 3, that's now your new home. Don't fight the system, influence the system. There's a difference between influencing and changing. Sometimes you can't change systems, but you influence systems. And one of the ways of influencing systems is to find out, what does the system want? As long as it's not evil, and is there a way I can change and fit so that I'm more pliable? Agility is that thing we are talking about. Agile is not just in culture, it's also in competencies. Can you acquire the competencies that culture wants so that you can fit? That's what I would say, Terry. And I know it's a difficult one. It's a huge change for you, particularly just having moved there. I pray that God will help you to find what is necessary. But my quick wisdom is find out what they want, do it, it will help you. As long as it's doable. That's what I would say. The cultures are different.
Thanks, Anne.
All right.
And
Any other?
And maybe one more thing. Yeah, maybe
Yes.
one more thing to point out is they appreciate people speaking out.
Yes.
Okay.
Because
Yes.
naturally in Africa, we tend to
We
leave the
don't.
bosses to
Yes.
speak.
The
But here
culture.
you have to speak out, yeah.
Yes, yes. In fact, if you tell them what you are struggling with, you will be shocked. Sometimes they appreciate it. You know, we fear. I told you it's a culture difference here. Our culture is you don't talk like that to the leader. Them, they are the same. It's like the leader and you are the same level. And they don't take that negatively. They take it well. So I agree with you, Mocha. Sometimes I used to go to the university and I would be shocked. Students would address the professors like they are equals. And we struggled for quite a while, those of us who had come from Africa. Of course, Africa has a good bit about it, the respect. Don't lose it. It has its own scores. So don't lose the respect. Don't completely deviate because culture is very strong on us. But adapt those things that you can. So we used to struggle when we were in school because students would just address our professors like they're equal. You know, somebody would say, Diana, and now they are doctors. So we are used to say Dr. Diana. So we didn't stop calling them doctors. We thought it was wise for us, but we gained courage to be able to engage and sometimes disagree with them. And they don't take it personally. I tell you the truth. That's what I saw. But the bigger one is what Mocha you have said. If anywhere, by the way, that principle works anywhere. It has nothing to do now with context. If you are good at what you do, the systems will look for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, God, Anne and Mocha.
All right. Welcome, Terry. Any other? Our time is up. Actually, we have short by 10 minutes. Want just to allow one question and then we will stop.
This
Yes,
is
yes,
Rachel.
Anton. Anton, let Anton go first. I think you wanted to go. Anton, go.
I just wanted to give a comment on today's session. I think it's quite informative because it sort of angles back to some feedback I was getting from some people in my chama. I think I've been trying to sort of get a lot of feedback on my sort of leadership qualities. And one of the things they said is that I'm inflexible. Yeah. When I think today, as we learned about agility and questioning your assumption and biases, I think it's quite eye-opening when I think about this too, because I think I have a lot of assumptions and biases that sort of inform my my leadership style and have a very strong sense of what I need to do. But I think today's class has really shed a lot of light in my inflexibility and how I need to grow to sort of become a bit more agile, because I think I've gotten to a place where I'm comfortable and I'm almost getting set in my ways. So thanks for this. I think it's good lessons and things to think about and sort of understand and change. Yeah.
Thanks, Antonia, and I appreciate you are getting vulnerable. That's the essence of this group. There was one more person. Thank you so much. There was one more person who wanted to say something.
This is Rachel.
Yes, Rachel.
Rachel Mwekali. I'm in Nairobi.
Yes.
I think my take home today has majorly been about being future smart. I work in the legal profession and there has been a change that has been happening. Normally you'll find like when you have a law firm, you have the advocates, then you have the other staff, like the support staff. So the secretaries and the clerks, and same in the courts. You will find that they are the judges and there's a whole lot of people who are just they are just support staff. And so since COVID began, now things had to go virtual. So we've been doing court virtually. We've been filing our documents virtually. And so what has been happening is there has been a lot of resistance from the support staff. Reason being, as an advocate, now I'm able to draft my pleadings and file them without needing to send someone to court to do anything. The court will fix a date for me if I need to be heard, and the session will still be virtual. But now you see there's a group of people, and not to say anything about anyone who might be a support staff here, but I think it's just for us to learn how to be agile.
It's a truth. It's a truth, Rachel.
Yes, yes. So now we have a lot of our support staff who are resisting the change or ensuring that the system does not work. Like this week, we had an issue at work where one of our clerks has been telling us documents cannot be filed. This system is not working. And then yesterday, I just got fed up. I was like, let me try this thing for myself. I filed all the documents within 2 hours, you know. And so there has been a lot of resistance. And after filing, they fixed a date for me. And now I even have hearing dates where I am expected to be heard virtually, which means then I can do it from home or wherever I am. Wow. I think what I really want to say is that even in our careers, we really need to be future smart to think, what's the relevance of what I'm doing now and how can I improve my skills now, be a perpetual learner to be able to be relevant even in the future. Are you able then to have foresight of how the world is changing, even if not in the coming 20 years, because we may not be able to do that, but even in 5 years, how can I keep improving myself? Because my heart bleeds for a lot of the legal profession is 80% support staff. You are either a messenger. Now we even don't need anybody to go serve somebody. We are serving electronically. And so they are now resisting the system because then they need to lose their jobs. And so for me, it's how can I be future smart to keep being a perpetual learner, to improve my skills, to help myself to be relevant even in the future. Yes, that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it's going to be, they might not change because Kenya, I think I mentioned this earlier in one of our courses, that Kenya is #1 in Africa. When you look at in technology adoption in public service, if you look at the 2019 artificial intelligence report for government government use in service provision, although Kenya is 52 globally, but we lead in Africa. So it's not going to change. They will continue to advance technology in use because they will, this one, it's going to be, it will cut a lot of layers of people. It will ultimately be cheaper for the government. And somebody earlier said clearly, there will be job loss. That's one of the challenges with technology. But I can tell you, human beings are very creative and versatile. They'll look for a way to figure out, but there is going to be resistance, just like any other change. It's resisted, and more so, governments everywhere are known to be very traditional. So any little change, because it takes years in government for a system to go on before it's, I mean, a system can take years functioning, even if it's not working well, but it takes many years before a government alters a system. But technology is shifting things completely. And the change, as I told you, the pressure is there, the wave is, think of a huge river that is carrying a collection of trees and the cars, and I mean, the volume is big. So the volume and the wave of technology cannot be resisted. So I must say, just keep learning the skill. Now ours is to say, how am I going to equip myself, for example, now for you as a lawyer, to be able now to file. And it will get to a level possibly now where me as a client will be able to file those documents from my house, and possibly I just hire you to here. You know, we are going to a different level. So I appreciate, and those are some of the things we need to monitor, what's happening in the environment out there. And we begin to ask ourselves, are we prepared to cope with this change, or what do we think the change is going to look like? I know this could be interesting, but I'm always very particular with time. I don't have to keep you longer. I hope I have been able to sensitize you enough to begin to want to be future smart and to develop the third sight, so that you don't just stay with the two. Don't ignore the two though. They are equally, all of them are equally important, the hide sight and the insight. But this is the success factor. If we can develop a future, a foresight, the third sight, will be very brilliant leaders. I mean, anywhere people are talking, you fit. You fit with the past, you fit with the present, and you'll be able to engage the future. Otherwise, thank you so much. I appreciate. Let me just remind you that I have been told IG is available on Saturday. So there is no change so far. That stands on Saturday at 4. Please, I want to encourage you to make time and come. That guy is very useful. He has very good insights, and we can engage him more. Should there be a change, I'll let you know, but we'll continue with this program. So thank you so much. If you allow me, I'll pray. I'm a Christian, and I always believe that God has given us another good opportunity to learn. So let me just pray for all of us, and that God will help us to develop. We have the capacity to have foresight, and I pray that God will help us to be able to be people that can utilize that internal capability. Let's just pray. Father, we thank you for the opportunity that we have to learn. We know many times we perish because we don't have knowledge. And so we believe this part of the knowledge that you want us to gain. Every time we gain knowledge, we are better. I pray that we'll not just hear, because when we hear and we don't do, then we are not very useful. So I pray for everybody who has participated in this session, that we will not just have heard, but we will pick that which we heard, that which challenged us, and we'll begin to do. Help us, particularly all of us, to develop that capability to be able to see beyond the physical, because there is ability There's an intuition that you're putting us that helps us to predict, right, to foresee and be able to map out things ahead of time, even in a more correct way, because you're involved. I pray for divine capability to be able to anticipate things right. And those of us that are committed to begin to make changes and shifts in our lives and be more agile, Lord, and question our assumptions and biases and all those things that we have learned, the Lord will help us to begin a journey, to continue with this journey of growth. I speak a blessing to everybody here. The Lord, it will be well with us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. God bless you.
Amen.
You switch on your camera and make sure you wave before you go. Don't just disappear.
Thank you. Thank you.
I see you. Thank you so much, guys. God bless you. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Dr. Anne. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.
Bye, bye, bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
bye.
you.
Bye.
Thanks, Harriet. Thanks, Mwende. Thanks, Kate. Thanks, Lois. Thanks. Thanks, all of you. Thanks, Cecily. Thank you. This. What is this? This.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Susan.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye, Dr. Anne. My internet is unstable.
Thank you. I hope you heard something.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.